Hi, everybody. Welcome to TGCS. My name is Tim Gallagher, and today we are going to be discussing AP Computer Science A, topic 4.10, implementing ArrayList algorithms. And in the second of two videos, we'll develop code for some standard and original algorithms and determine the results of these algorithms. So for this video, we're going to focus on these three algorithms. Let's look at determining the number of elements in an array list that have a particular property. We'll also access all consecutive pairs of elements within an array list, and we'll determine the presence or absence of duplicate elements within the array list. Let's get started. So when we talk about implementing ArrayList algorithms, we always want to make sure that we understand what it is we're looking for, evaluate and think about the concept of the algorithm and write those down before we write any code. So asking yourself, what's our goal? Do we need to get a value, a location, a particular element? What type of results do we want to have? Are the objects, what type of objects are in the array list? Can we compare them, accumulate them, check an attribute of whatever those elements are? And then finally, do we need to traverse the entire array list? And this is going to come up in some of these algorithms here. Might there be a condition where we could just halt our algorithm early before traversing the entire array list? All right, let's get started. So let's talk about the college class. This is the class that we're going to use within our array list. We've spoken before about how we have this college class and 16 instance variables and 16 accessor methods that we're going to use to get some information about all of the institutions that are in our array list. So here is the program that we're going to use to write our algorithms for. So we have a program called institution list. And in this, we have an array list of colleges called schools. And this is the same program that we looked at in our last video. We have a constructor where we initialize our instance variable by constructing a new array list. And then we have a load data file method. Now, we looked at this. We're not going to look at it in this video. We looked at it in the last video and in video 4.6, which gave us a lot of information about reading from a file and how we can construct our objects from that file data. So let's go ahead and jump in and look at our algorithm methods that we're going to write. So the first one, determine the number of elements in an array list that have a particular property. We're going to write a method called count high financial aid schools. So this is going to count and return the number of schools where the number of students receiving financial aid is greater than a particular threshold. So let's talk about our algorithm here. So we know we're going to have to traverse through all of the schools in our array list. And each time we visit a school, we're going to check that the number of students receiving financial aid, if it's greater than my threshold parameter. And if it is, we're going to add it to a counter. So that means we're going to need some sort of counter to determine how many schools there are that are above this threshold. So we'll need a variable for that. Finally, after the loop is done, we're going to return that counter. All right, so let's take a shot at implementing this algorithm. Now, remember, we have an array list of colleges called schools. That's my private instance variable in this class. And in the college class, we have a method called get percent of students financial aid. That tells us what the percentage of students at that particular institution receive financial aid, and that'll come in handy for this algorithm. So if you want to hit pause here and go ahead and attempt this algorithm yourself, and we'll come back and look at the code together. All right, let's give it a shot. So first, we know we're going to need a counter because we're looking at the number of schools that receive financial aid, or students, the percentage of students who receive financial aid is above a particular threshold. So that's what our counter is for. We're going to loop through all of our schools. Here, I used a for each loop. So for each college, I'll call it C within my schools. And now I need to use an if statement to check to see if C dot get percent of students find aid, meaning is the financial aid or the percentage of students that receive financial aid at that particular school, is it greater than my threshold? If it is, well, then I want to do a count plus plus because I'm just counting how many schools are above that threshold. After my loop is done, I'm going to return my counter, return count. How'd you do? Fantastic. Let's look at another algorithm and implementing another method here. So this one is access all consecutive pairs of elements in an array list. One of our algorithms that we want to explore in section 4.10. So we're going to we have write a method called is increasing order by rank, and we're going to return true if the schools are in increasing order by rank. Return false otherwise here. So they should be, right? We looked at the data file and it looked like that all of the schools were in a particular order, going from 1 all the way down to 498. But let's verify that with some code. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to loop through the list to compare the adjacent ranks. We're going to compare each school with the one right after it. So we're going to check to see if the current rank is ever greater than the next rank. It shouldn't be, right? It should always be less than the next rank. But if it is greater than the rank of the college right after it, well, that's not good. That means they're not in increasing order. So we're going to immediately return false. This is one of those where we found a particular situation in our array list, and we don't have to look any further. All it takes is one pair of colleges to be out of order, and that means my colleges are not in increasing order by rank. However, if I go all the way through, looping through all the elements in my array list, and I never returned false, well, that must mean that they are in increasing order. So I'm going to return true. That's our algorithm in comments. Don't forget that we have our private array list of colleges called schools, and we have a method in the college class called getRank, where we can determine what the rank is for each individual institution. So give it a shot implementing this. Go ahead and hit pause right now, and we'll be back to look at the code. All right, let's look at the code together. So I need a loop, right? I don't need a counter or an accumulator or anything like that because I'm just comparing consecutive values. So here's my loop, and I do need to use a traditional for loop here because I need to look at the index numbers. Now you'll notice this one, I start off at int I equals 0, but I go to I less than schools.size minus 1. The reason I do that is because I'm going to look at the schools in position I as well as the school in position I plus 1. And if I don't do a size minus 1 here, I'm going to go out of bounds when I get to the end of the array list. Another way of doing this was to use I and I minus 1, but then it would start at 1 and not 0. So either way works. This is how we chose to implement it here. All right, so let's check to see if the current rank, schools.getI.getRank, is ever greater than the next rank, which is schools.getI plus 1.getRank. And that's going to get the rank of the school that we're currently at, as well as the one right after it. If the one right after it, or if the current school is greater than the one right after it, that's not a good situation. That means they're out of order. So I'm going to immediately return false. I found a situation where the schools are out of order. I don't need to search the rest of them. However, if I do search all of them and I've never returned false, well, then I'm going to go ahead and return true because that means that they must be in order because I never had a situation where I needed to return false. How'd you do? All right. Our last one is let's determine the presence or absence of duplicate elements in our array list. So we're going to write a method called has duplicate organization names. This is a Boolean method as well. And it's going to return true if any two colleges in the list have the same organization name, which is what they refer to for the college or university. It'll return false otherwise. So we're going to loop through and compare our school with every other school in the list. Now think about how we need to do this. We're going to probably need 2 loops, but think about the structure of how those loops are going to work in order to compare each school against all the other schools. If we ever have 2 schools that have the same organization name, well, then immediately return true because I found a duplicate pair, right? I don't have to search anymore. All it takes is one duplicate pair for me to return true because I found a duplicate. After I'm done checking everything, if I'm still there, well, then I'm going to return false because there are no duplicate organization names in my array list. All right. Don't forget, we do have our array list of colleges called schools, and we do have a method in the college class called getOrganizationName, which will return the name of the college or university. So go ahead and hit pause here, and we'll look at the code in just a moment. All right, ready? Here we go. So let's talk about these loops. So I'm going to loop through all of and traverse the entire array list of schools. Great. But as I get to each one, I need to compare it with all the other schools. However, I don't need to do an entire traversal of the array list again. I only need to look at the schools that are after my current school, because the ones that are before my current school, I've already checked those against all the schools after it. So I really just need to check starting at I plus 1. So I have another loop here, int j equals I plus 1, j less than schools dot size, j plus plus. So this first loop, the I loop, is going to go through all my schools. The j loop is going to look at every school after my school that I use with the dot get I method, because that way I will verify that I'll check and compare all pairs of schools within my schools most efficiently. So if two schools have the same organization name, if schools, and there's a big one here, if schools, which is an array list, dot get I, which gives me a college, dot get organization name gives me the name of the college or university, dot equals, that's how I compare strings. Now, what am I comparing it to? The name of the other institution. So schools dot get j dot get organization name. If those are ever equal, well, then I'm going to return true immediately because I found a duplicate. However, if I get all the way through both of those nested loops and I've never returned true, well, that must mean there's no duplicates. So I'm going to return false. How'd you do? All right, let's test out these methods and see how they work. So again, back in our institution tester program, I have my public static void main string args. I do have a throws IO exception at the end here because I'm doing some file IO. First thing we do is create an institution list called colleges, which is a new institution list. This is the class where I just wrote all those methods. I'm going to load the data file, which is top colleges 2022, the edited version, because I cleaned that data, .csv. And then I'm going to print out college data analysis. And now let's look at the results. First, I'm going to call the count high financial aid schools in the colleges object. So colleges dot count high financial aid schools, and I'm going to set it 90. So I'm looking for the number of schools with more than 90% of the students receiving financial aid. So just to see how many schools have meet that threshold. And it'll print out the high aid count once it determines that. Then I want to know, are the colleges in increasing order by rank? So I'm going to call colleges.is increase in order by rank. It comes back true. I'm going to print out colleges are in increasing order. If it comes back false, because that's my Boolean expression, then I'm going to print out colleges are not in increasing order by rank. And then finally, I'm going to look at, are duplicate organization names present? Are there any two colleges with the exact same name? So I call the colleges.has duplicate organization names. If it's true, I'll print out that duplicate organization names are present. But if it comes back false, I'll print out duplicate organization names are not present. All right, let's run it and see what we get. Here is our college data analysis. It says the number of colleges with more than 90% of the students receiving financial aid was 263. Remember, there was 498 in there. So that's more than half of the colleges and universities have 90% of their student population receiving financial aid. Interesting statistic. The colleges in this data set are in increasing order by rank, and we have no duplicate organization names present. So there we go. Some good information. Looks like our methods worked. All right. So today we developed code for our standard and original algorithms in a particular context that involved ArrayList, and we determined the results of our algorithms. Specifically, we looked at the number of elements in an array list having a particular value or property. We accessed consecutive pairs of elements in an array list. That's where we did the rankings, looked at the ranks. And we determined the presence or absence of duplicate elements in our array list by looking at all the different institution names within my array list. All right, so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Take care.